Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host this week, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Lori and Kenneth and Dan and Jason and Catherine. And today we are starting a new book, Hunting Discomfort by Sterling Hawkins. I think we're all pretty excited about this one. It's got some this kind of breakthrough results, how to get breakthrough results in life and business no matter what. So this is a little bit different than what we've done recently. This is more, I think, business, career, success, etc. kind of minded versus some of the other stuff we've done, which is more deep diving into spiritual growth or internal growth. So, but before we get going, I want to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching, if you'd like to join this discussion, because we're going to be talking about this book for a while. And oh, we got another person jumping on here real quick. So we're going to be talking about this book for a little while. We'll just read a little bit and share our thoughts and what we're wanting to talk about. And then everybody can have an opportunity to jump in if they'd like to. Let's give everybody an opportunity to jump out, introduce yourselves, and then Catherine's going to read for us. If you want to add your thoughts, just unmute and jump in the conversation, and we'll just go from there. Introduce yourselves.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Good morning, all. It's Jason in Tampa Bay, Florida. Great to be here. Good to see you all. Good morning.
Dan Sislick in Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right, Kenji, Maine, Gorham, Maine. Good morning, everyone.
Cheryl from Baltimore, Maryland. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement, and I'll be reading today. So we're reading Hunting Discomfort by Sterling Hawkins, and it starts out with praise for hunting discomfort. And it goes through a bunch of where people have given their little reviews and how much they love the book and stuff. I don't think we need to read through all those. So let me get here. All right, chapter 1, Hunting Discomfort. The way out is through. My mom, also Robert Frost. Please welcome to the stage, Sterling Hawkins. The master of ceremonies had just stepped to the podium to make the announcement. The Singapore Conference Center was at maximum capacity as he addressed the hundreds of participants of the Seamless Asia Conference. I don't remember much of what he said before I heard my name. I was consumed by the tension that was rippling through my body, leaving a pit in my stomach and my fingers trembling. I'd been afraid before, but this felt like something that went far beyond any definition of fear that I knew. All I had going for me was that I was wearing a suit, so no sweat. Now soaking my shirt wasn't visible. If my name and face weren't plastered all over the place announcing me as the keynote speaker, I would have bolted in those moments before being called onto that stage and into my worst nightmare. To say I wasn't a professional speaker would have been an understatement. I have always been one of those people who would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy. Even though I had worked my tail off preparing and practicing for this moment that didn't seem to help my nerves. Clearly, I had made a terrible mistake and needed to get out of there. But before I could flee the scene, I heard the introduction I'd been anxiously anticipating for months. It was too late, and good thing. It ended up being the breakthrough moment that led me from being part of a multi-billion-dollar bankruptcy, which had left me anxiety-ridden, single, depressed, and playing out a sad country song of living at my parents' house while in my 30s, to an entirely new path of hunting down and working through discomfort to realize breakthroughs beyond my wildest dreams. Since that moment, I've become a professional keynote speaker presenting on stages around the world. I've given a TEDx talk sharing how we can all go through discomfort in order to reach our goals, dreams, and ambitions. And I've used those practices to aid in the launch, growth, and investment of more than 50 companies with hundreds of people from the no matter what community. More on that later. It turns out there's something of a formula for engineering breakthroughs. The key ingredient, discomfort. Over the past decade, I've been developing this formula through my own series of personal experiments with proactively seeking discomfort. I've sought physical discomfort like running 50 miles and cycling through the Rocky Mountains, emotional and mental discomfort such as having tough conversations and sharing failures publicly, and even spiritual discomfort through plant medicine ceremonies deep in the jungles of Peru. Most of that experience would make for a different book entirely. As unbelievable as my life has become, this book isn't about me. It's about you. And it's the amalgamation of thousands of hours of training, coaching, and mentoring poured into me by some of the most incredible people I've ever met. That and of the pursuit of learning everything I could through the available research and studies in order to fine tune a process for hunting discomfort for breakthrough results. I've done it. Others have done it. You can do it too. Before we head off for the hunt, let's take a moment to discuss why discomfort is so important, especially in our increasingly uncertain world. Discomfort, our feedback system. So many of us fantasize about having perfect lives in a perfect world. Many of us believe that once we reach a certain point in our business, career, or relationship, or number in our bank account, we will finally be free of struggle, constraints, and pain. I hate to be the bearer of tough news here, but you're fantasizing about a fantasy. As Dr. Gabor Mate, author of In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, writes, you're looking for security and think that you will find freedom, think they will give you freedom. Discomfort is fundamentally necessary, and denying it or attempting to avoid it leaves you at a severe disadvantage. You've probably heard of leprosy. Left turn here, I know. I'll make sense in a minute. The bacteria that causes leprosy, officially known as Hansen's disease, was first discovered in 1873 by Norwegian physician G.A. Hansen. It's an awful disease that untreated will leave the afflicted with muscle weakness, skin lesions, and eventually the loss of nose, toes, fingers, and/or limbs. Hansen was surprised to discover that the bacteria wasn't responsible for the loss of extremities. The bacteria damaged nerves, which in turn led to patients losing their sense of physical pain. Without this feedback system to monitor an injury, the patients often wouldn't know how serious the injury was. Their wounds would become further damaged and infected, eventually resulting in tissue death. Physical pain is one form of discomfort, but all discomfort, whether physical, mental, emotional, or even spiritual, works in a similar way. It is our feedback system. Without discomfort, we are unable to detect how we're interacting with the environment, access current or pending danger, or handle things that need attention. Discomfort, our compass. Discomfort helps us stay oriented in the world. Like the needle of a compass, it points the way of our path forward. Today, we live in a world of accelerating disruption, incredible complexity, and increasing risks, unknowns on a global scale. You feel it around you, don't you? The COVID-19 pandemic, tech disruption, civil unrest, misinformation, environmental changes, corporate restructurings, changing work conditions, and at the same time, increasing demands from customers, communities, and I'm willing to bet family. We are increasingly forced to grapple with the unknown in all areas of our lives. The maps we've used in the past to successfully navigate the world often do not reflect the rapidly changing landscape, leaving us with obsolete navigational systems. At the edge of everything you know personally, and we know collectively, is the unknown. When you cross over that edge, you may encounter a feeling of chaos that most people are trying to avoid, discomfort. You might recognize it with some of the same feelings I had before being called to the stage in Singapore. A pit in your stomach, trembling limbs, words of fear, anxiety, anger, or worry not entirely capturing the moment. As uncomfortable as it is, we don't get a pass from facing the unknown and its harbinger, change. It's an inherent part of life. Most people hear that as bad news. The truth is, on the other side of the unknown are all the results you're looking for. What news could be better than that? When you turn toward discomfort, you will discover a compass leading you to what you want most.
I'll stop you there for just a second, Catherine. Does anybody have any thoughts on what she's read so far? I kind of underlined a few things that I thought were points to go over.
I have one thought where he talks about discomfort as being like a form of feedback. I think I would agree with him. I think discomfort and all the issues that we go through and deal with are ways of giving us feedback. And it's, as we've learned through other books, I think it's how we discern and deal with that feedback, for lack of a better way, and moving forward. And a lot of times I will say, I think we move forward thinking we're doing the right thing with what information we have at the time. But a lot of times we end up finding out that we still are not going the direction that we want. That's my little bit that I want to throw out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dan. It's recognizing it as feedback, and then also recognizing our response to it. I thought that was interesting what he was saying in your reading, Catherine, as well. Thank you for that, and the way you also regarded it as our compass, because it did, open my eyes just slightly right there, just thinking about a different way of looking at my emotional response to things, because it seems like we're in this day and age having a lot of different discomfort stimulus that's out there, so sort of recognizing it in a different light.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to remember, is that it's just the fact that discomfort is what kind of guides us, whether it's where the part where he's talking about the leprosy and that, without pain receptors, you don't even know if you're hurting yourself. So, I mean, if we look at that as a way of just kind of guiding us, I think that's helpful. But I also think this part where he's talking about, he says, so many of us fantasize about having perfect lives in a perfect world, and many of us believe once we reach a certain point in our business, career, or relationship, we'll finally be free of struggle, constraints, and pain. And I don't know where we tend to have this idea of that, or where that, if it's a cultural thing, or, I don't know if it's just, I'm not sure where the idea comes from that tells us that, but I've never experienced that. I've never experienced reaching a certain point of anything and then everything is just easy. Maybe it was the all the Disney movies that we watched as kids that made us think that there's all this struggle and all these things that happen, but then you get the guy and it's happily ever after, right? Maybe that's what it is. It's just the happily ever after mentality that we think is going to be the key to our happiness. And but I've never experienced it that way. But what I have experienced over the years is just kind of reaching points where I've been working so hard and I just don't want to work hard anymore. I just want to take a break and I just want it to be easier. And so then I get frustrated with the fact that it isn't easier, or I'll just stop working so hard because I'm like, I'm so over all this baloney and I just want to just chill, and but yet to get that further growth or that increase in, whether it is in business side where I want, our business to be more successful, or if it's on the personal side where, I want to have a deeper relationship with somebody in my family, there's always some kind of obstacle that you have to face or overcome in order for you to move to the next level. And, even with us over the years, with all the books that we have discussed that talk about our different internal struggles. I mean, if we want to overcome that, we have to face it, whatever it is. So I think this is just a really powerful, concept of recognizing that discomfort's not a bad thing. It's a thing that helps us to move forward and have new achievements. So I'm kind of excited that we're going to be discussing this in different ways and see what comes up for us to how we can apply these things in our lives.
Yeah, I thought it was a little funny. He said that was if we were thinking that way about that things would be easy at some point, we were fantasizing about a fantasy. It was like a double whammy. Um, but yeah, I mean, gosh, so much of it, I think we've learned that is kind of about the way you look at things. And this is a good example of how you can't really even expect to have a full perspective of something like this until you've been through it enough and stopped and looked back and looked at what it was that you've been through. Oh, but definitely I like these pointing out that it's the feedback system, and also a kind of a guide to, or that's kind of how we've been using it. That's how it kind of affects us, and also the implications or the problems with not recognizing that and not utilizing it that way.
I think it's interesting that the first 7 years of our life, we are pretty much programmed to whatever surroundings you were born into, and how much that dictates your emotions and your thoughts and ideas. And certainly mainstream media has an influence on that. I remember as a little kid how much Good Housekeeping type ideas influenced me and my surroundings, that got to have everything just right in the house or I'm not going to be up to par, so to speak. And how much that has influenced what I do and don't do. Being a domestic goddess, whatever.
I am definitely not a domestic goddess.
I'm a recovering domestic goddess.
I like that.
It's funny how all through the years and all the books we go through, there's always something from the books. It seems like we always find something from all the books that we can take and add and use for our lives. And so it's interesting, how he says that, the discomfort, and how many of us here are looking for ways to improve and make our lives better, and looking and going through all these books and realizing that like we've learned through all the books, that it really is within us, that we, through that and our connections with God, universe, infinite intelligence, through all that we, can grow and get to our best versions of ourselves. But it's interesting to see the many number of different ways we've encountered of how to help grow.
For sure. For sure. I like, well, I don't say I don't necessarily like, but there's this point he makes here about that we're increasingly forced to grapple with the unknown in all areas of our lives, and the maps we've used in the past to successfully navigate the world often do not reflect the rapidly changing landscape, leaving us with obsolete navigational systems. And that I'm going to be real. I'm really interested to see how he is suggesting that we deal with some of this stuff, because this has been something that's been kind of on my mind for a while now. And I'm guessing that, 100 years ago, or our parents, or not our parents, but like our grandparents and their parents, I mean, they're looking at a world completely different from us. And when we were growing up, we were taught, if you work hard and you stay focused and you keep doing it, you're gonna have success, right? And nowadays, with the way the whole world is, it's so much different. And even the way that the schools teach the kids, compared to what it was when we were younger. And now it's like I look at my grandchildren and I'm like, I don't even know how I can possibly prepare you for the future, because the future is so unknown. I mean, literally unknown. We have no freaking idea as to what the future holds. And it's like trying to teach kids how to be in the world, or how to survive, or how to and not just like survive as in, health wise, but I mean that's part of it, because that's changing too. But survive financially, and in in the world of, their careers, and just every aspect, survive socially. I mean, kids are faced with so much insanity on the internet that we were never even would have that would never cross my mind that that was even a thing that was possible. And it worries me, and yet it excites me all at the same time. I'm like, there's this exciting aspect of the world is going to be something that we've never seen before, and yet at the same time that terrifies me, because I have no way to prepare my grandchildren for that. And I say I'm not the only one trying to prepare them, obviously, because my son and daughter-in-law, but they're the ones that are going to be faced with this. It's like my son, he's in our business with us, and we're doing our trucking business, and that is uh that's great. Although at the same time, I look at the world and I'm going, how is that landscape even going to change? And how, I mean, is this a business that's going to be sustainable for another 50 years, or is this something that's going to be obsolete soon? I mean, we just don't know. And it's kind of terrifying in a way, looking into the future, not having any clue as to what we can expect from it. And so I'm excited to see how he's going to be addressing some of that aspect of it. And yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? The future scaring you? I don't know.
Like you would not believe. It just medically, just like what you were saying, Samantha, medically, professionally, financially, all three of those very important life things just seem to be changing it to such a degree. And it's like, it's hard from, as you said, from our perspective and growing up. But then, it comes to me that even our parents probably were in the same situation to some degree. They really didn't know how things were going to change as we were. I just remember conversations with my mother, you know, and she's trying to tell me, no, this is how it's supposed to go. And it's like, they don't do that like that anymore, Mom. It's like this. And I'm getting that from my son. So it's just, I think every generation has had its um challenges. And you're absolutely right. How do you see the future? How do you see where things are going? The only thing I can think of, and it's what I talk with my son about, is stay in touch with the science. Keep looking to see what new things are going or are coming up. So anyway, that's my 10 cents. Thank you.
It was a good 10 cents.
Thank you very much.
Everything changes, and that's the scary challenging part. And maybe that's what he's meaning by hunting the discomfort. So why would you seek it out? So
Well,
maybe
I
that's
think you
what
would seek it out to learn. I think every discomfort is a lesson, and it's a lesson in ourselves. What are we willing to challenge ourselves to do and to see, and moving forward, and having to accept those challenges.
amen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that um, well, going back and listening to my grandmother, talk about stories of, what it was like, living through the Depression and, being born before all that happened. My grandfather being born in 1906, he's been long gone but, you know, they were alive. Well, my grandmother was alive, I think, just after the First World War started, was born, and my grandfather was definitely born before the First War. So they lived through two world wars that may not have gotten directly here on our doorstep here per se in the country, but we were heavily involved and we had a major impact on in both. And then later on, the Korean and Vietnam and, all those things. And it was, and yes, we've had but it's been a different look for us compared to them because it could have really eventually maybe made it to our shores or something. So they had all that, plus they had the Great Depression, and then they were looking back, so they saw the changes from the precipice coming off of the coming with the new millennium. Then my grandfather being born in 1906, you know here we are, we're in this, the next millennia, and we're already 20 years into it. And the advances in that time have been the greatest advances, but I think some of the greatest advances are still coming up, that we have yet to really realize. And it provides all the same fears, trepidations, excitement. We're so used to like because I was definitely alive, and doing things the old kind of way, learning all the things we did, but then computers coming on and becoming more prominent within our everyday lives, not being saved for the big companies that have the money to pay for those big honking things that took up a whole floor of a building and stuff. So it's interesting to see, that we've lived through that, we've survived through that, and we've all had our own discomfort, our own ups and downs, our own things, and struggle through just like they did. And so far, we're still here. We're still moving forward. We're still going. So, I don't like the discomfort most of the time, but after I've gone through it, I look back and say, had I not gone through that, I would not be where I am now, and I would not have learned or gained the appreciation out of it that I have now. So if I don't have to go through anything that I don't feel I need to, I don't want to, but a lot of times I go through what I need to because it's just what's happening and the results of life. And when I get on the other side, I'll look back and I'll probably say, oh, okay, that helped me and grew me and taught me a lot of things. Was painful, but at the same point, I'll be grateful. So I it's scary to think of what the future will be like, and some of it I don't think I'm liking, but at the same point, I can't be afraid. I got to keep going.
The alternative isn't a good thing either. They're not here and not experiencing and learning.
Yeah, right. True. And but when you're seeing when you're seeing discomfort like everywhere you look, and your your idea is to think that it's that um that you're like I think he was saying, expecting it to that there's going to be more pain or punishment or admonishment behind whatever discomfort that is that you're seeing. um he also points out that denying it and avoiding it is can be detrimental. um and and so then when we see it from every angle, from everything that we try to do, then um it really triggers another feeling that I think you touched on a little bit there, Dan, with a a heightened sense of actual fear, not just knowing or thinking that there's going to be discomfort, but a fear of what the unknown about that discomfort and where it's coming from and what's going to happen afterwards. But kind of the knee-jerk reaction of actually having fear and acting from that point. So I think it's huge to have that change of perspective to where you're sort of not looking at it from a fear perspective, but as, hey, this is feedback. This is a guide. This is this is a compass for me from my internal being, that is just allowing me to have a little bit of heightened understanding of, and be on the lookout, but to not to take it to that level of actually fearing and living in fear. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot too. It's, just kind of looking at the future or not looking at the future, but considering the future when it comes to just our trucking business is a big aspect of that, because I mean that's our livelihood. And as everything changes with that and changes with how business is done, I mean that's even a big part of it, is how you're finding work and how you're communicating with people, and their expectations versus what you are able to provide, and trucking. But there's just so many aspects to it, and I think there is to all types of businesses. But I have all these worries that come up, and I have to remind myself often that I can't do anything about the unknown. All I can do is work with what is in front of me, and do the best. Know that I'll do the best that I can with what I have to work with, and that'll be good enough. And that's kind of terrifying in and of itself, thinking that it'll be good enough however it is. But it's still, and I guess it's the same, if I look at it in terms of my grandchildren, is that I'm just doing the best I can with what I have to work with right now, and we'll face these things going forward as they come up, because there's no sense in getting myself all worked up and anxiety and all of that over what I don't know, because I could have worries about something happening, and that may not even be the thing that does happen. So it's just I think that's part of it too, is just reminding ourselves to be in the now as much as we can, and trust ourselves that we'll know what to do when stuff really starts to happen or change or whatever. And remembering that this continuing to read, and I think reading some of these books that some of these younger entrepreneurs have made is a big deal too, because then you kind of get some insights into what the younger generation is doing and how they're going about it in the current you know economical landscape and social interactions and all of that kind of thing. So yeah.
I kind of think that when the majority of people, like us, are looking towards making progress in the things that we are doing, and um, trying to achieve better things. I think that momentum of that, um, as a whole, I think if you look at it that way and bring that into the bigger picture, you can have some, you can feel better about what we don't know about the future, and that it also promises a lot of great opportunities for everyone as well. And so, like, for what you do, Samantha, there's knowledge in what you have done and what you do that you can bring to the table and then benefit from the um, technological advances that will come into play in your industry, and that can be exciting, you know. So I think that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, I like the point that you made, Samantha, though, about reading some of the books that some of the younger entrepreneurial minds or those that are coming up and have made have attained success in some of their ways, as to what they've learned, what they've bring to the table, what they gathered, and some of the new ways that they look how to do things that can add or grow, that are different, and but yet they might be better. Sometimes um, doing the same thing over and over, tends to result in the same result. Sometimes, and sometimes being able to get out and look and see different avenues and thought processes help to break open some of our own. Sometimes we just need, somebody to show us in that, and then we go, oh, well, I can improve on that then, that type of thing where, oh, I see that. Okay, I can take that and make it this or whatever. And, I think we've learned through a lot of the books that there's no real set right way for anything, and we all have our own paths, and it's making what we know and what we learned and experienced and taking that and utilizing that to help in our path forward for success, because everybody has their own idea of success. There's a general broad scope of what people think, what we look for, what we emulate and stuff like that. But deep down, everybody's success is more related to them and what they're looking for in life and what they're wanting out of life. And so it's going to be a little different for everybody, but we can definitely take, even from some of the younger people, where we look at them and think they don't know anything, they're doing it all ass backwards or this or that or the other thing. But sometimes doing it ass backwards might really work. It might be the better way to go sometimes.
Or the way my dad always said it was bass backwards.
Uh-huh. I just had a thought when you were saying that, Dan, and I was sitting here thinking about, the kids and how I think as parents and grandparents, we tend to have a thought in our head that, it's our way, otherwise you're doing it wrong, right? And we want to keep teaching that to our kids for whatever reason. I don't know. We just don't recognize the fact that maybe we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to going into the future. I mean, we do in a lot of ways, obviously, but then in other ways, I think that we really need to be encouraging our children to have that independent thinking and the independent creativity, and encouraging them to come up with ideas that we never even thought of, and being okay with that, because that can be hard sometimes, particularly when your children or your grandchildren, whoever it is, are doing things that just seem so crazy to you. And I mean, right now my kids are still young. Not my kid, my grandchildren. When I talk about the kids, I'm talking about my grandchildren. But when I'm looking at the kids, and they're all under 8 years old right now, so they're still young and very impressionable. And I have to be really careful about some of the things that I say to them, and make sure that I'm not squashing down their creativity or their independence or any of those kinds of things. But yet at the same time trying to shape them moralistically and ethically, those kind of ways, but yet allow them to be as much themselves as possible, because they may have, we just don't know. We just don't know. And I feel like when I was a kid, and in my school, my teachers and my parents and my grandparents and everybody was like, this is how it is. This is how you're supposed to behave in every situation. And there's no leeway. There's no, it's just cut and dry. There's black and white, and nowadays it's not, everything's different, and so we have to remember to help our children to be able to navigate this future, because we're not going to know the answer to a lot of things that they're faced with. And it's like a lot of the social media bullying and all of that insanity, and the things that kids are doing, constantly posting every little thing on the internet, and they're still have this way of hurting each other. All that we can do, I think, is just encourage our kids to have as strong as self-esteem as they possibly can, and then also be, I don't know, helping them to face these things as best as they can. So I don't know. Anyway, I kind of went off topic there, but
It wasn't off topic. It's just another perspective.
And it's valuable to look at that, because it is a reality in today's world, even for grown-ups. I mean, and whether we like it or not, little things that are said in the ways they're said, whether we like to admit it or not, they do hurt, and they can hurt deeply, or they can affect us, and sometimes we don't even realize how much they affect us till later on, and we're like, you're sitting there and you're kind of ruminating over it, and you're going over it and going over it, and it just sits there, and and it's like, why does it just sit there? Why does it keep popping up instead of, and I think, like you said, we got to teach our, the next generation how to learn to be strong in themselves and secure in themselves, because it's going to be something that's going to be dealt with all your life in different ways and shapes and forms, whether we like it or not. No matter how perfect you try to make the world perfect, it will never be perfect. There's always going to be something somewhere that's going to have something to say that, or think, or do, that's not going to, make some people not feel right, or one person, it's and I think it's still a long ways off from getting to that type of thought and ability in life, to where people can really truly exist in that harmony. I mean, we go through periods in the world where it seems to be more harmonious than others, but there's always something, and that's part of what, even now we're still learning to work and deal with it, and take that as part of the discomfort, part of the living, part of the building ourselves up too. You know, if we're honest, we're still doing it. We're still trying to understand, and we're still trying to, you know, deal with, for lack of a better way, the demons that we deal with, and overcome to get to the best version of ourselves, so that way for our families and friends we can show that to them, hopefully, and help them too.
They'll be the last ones to see it. Those that are closest to you, those that love you, oftentimes don't see the changes that are inside you. They see you the way they want to see you, the way through their own filter. He mentioned Gabor Mate, and I've done a considerable amount of studying on Gabor Mate, and he was the first therapist that really answered the question that I had, which was why? And I'm just glad that he was able to put a video out that details my life and what happened and what I can do. And it's not all good news, because depending on the level of the dysfunction, it's going to be how that person is able to fare throughout life. And in some cases, they can't change. Gabor says that it's so ingrained, it's so a part of who they are. There's no therapy that's going to set them straight, unfortunately. And we see those people on the streets today. We see them in the homeless camps. We see them not fitting into society. So this is a good book. I'm really glad that he mentioned Gabor. Um, Gabor can be a little dry. He's kind of hard to hear, with his accent, but he's so spot on. He says, you show me a person with an autoimmune disease and I'll tell you what his dysfunction was, what happened to them. And he's pretty much spot on. Anyway, I apologize. I have an allergy headache. I think it's getting better, but I had to take the hippie crack, so I'm going to be wired. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, how much of the response, when we're not recognizing discomfort as a feedback mechanism and as a guide, and we're just responding, whether it be from fear or anxiety or avoidance or whatever. What are we doing to ourselves? What are we? Gosh, what that can culminate in lots of different things. So I think it's like you said, I mean, recognizing that is probably pretty good. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but he's talking about denying it or avoiding it. And we had this conversation a few weeks back in regards to our comfort zones. And like I said, I'm sort of the person that likes to swim from one island of comfort to the next and stay in that zone as long as I can, and just stay in my comfort zone as long as I can. But I do see the value of stepping out of the comfort zone and not fearing the discomfort, but searching past that to see, and expecting good things on the other side of it. It's just that I also have, so a lot of our books talk about how when even just recognizing discomfort or recognizing your feelings of discomfort with other people, how that can take you out of alignment from what you really hope for yourself. And so almost like avoiding it is almost what they're teaching. And so for me, it sort of just brings to mind that that perhaps there is another way of even looking at that avoidance. Sometimes I like to find the flow of the day, so to speak, and I'll I will celebrate every green light I can get, and just and try to find that flow, and not necessarily totally avoiding it. But I mean, how often do we choose to go out into rush hour traffic just to experience that discomfort, and maybe we'll grow a little bit from it, So it's just very it's enlightening, just a little brief part of the book we've read so far. So thank you.
I will just jump out and say that I have been out in that rush hour traffic. I have Ubered and done and dealt with that. That is not fun. And by the end of the day, a lot of times I am, like yesterday, I finally, about an hour earlier than I wanted to, because I had a doctor's appointment, but I was going to drive up until about 45 minutes or so before I had to be over there. And at one point, I seemed to just be getting the same little rides, and finally, I'm just said, I'm done. I've had it with these rides. I've had it with and so going even something like that, that was a discomfort, and I chose to get out of that discomfort. I just went over, sat and waited for my appointment, and then I got irritated there because the doctors always wait forever to come in to talk to you. It's like, my appointment's at 3:30. Come in and talk to me and see me at 3:30. Sorry, but getting out of my discomfort issue that I had yesterday. But it is, one of those things. It's like, why does that bother me so much? And why is that, little, and it's just part of me that I hate to wait. I hate to wait. I hate to wait. I hate to wait. So in that sense, but what helped me get to that point of why do I hate that? What is it from in my past or whatever that, is such an ingrained thing to me now that, like, I hate it. Sorry, just venting a little bit here, I guess, maybe.
I think as long as you hate it, then you're just going to get more in that to teach you something, not just you. I'm just saying, whatever emotion it is that we're discomfort about, I think you'll get more of it until you learn a different path. Not speaking to you specifically, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Oh, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say I forgot you're driving, Dan. So I would so didn't mean to bring that up, man. I totally get with vent, brother, vent. It's fine. We're all with you.
It was just an example, right?
That's funny.
Yes, just that overall example for the world out there.
Well, I think we all have those kind of like emotional things that make us uncomfortable, whatever it is. They're the things that push our buttons the most, that we most want to avoid, and I think that if we look into those things and we kind of examine, what is it that I'm really upset about? Because generally in my experience, when the triggers, Kenneth, right, is that when whatever it is that is triggering me is usually not the thing that's happening. It's like it's niggling away at some internal thing, internal process or frustration, or it's like when it comes to my husband, I mean, he pushes my buttons with all kinds of stuff. And but generally it doesn't have anything to do with what he's actually said or done or whatever. It's it, it usually has something to do with my own issues that I struggle with within myself, the things that I feel like aren't, I'm not doing as well as I should be, or I'm not acting in the best way that I should be, or I'm, whatever it is, I'm already critical about myself. And when he's, poking me about it in whatever way, or he says something that triggers my angst about it, it's because I'm already thinking about that thing. I'm already upset about it with myself, and I haven't dealt with that, or I haven't changed my way of dealing with it, or confronted it within myself, or accepted it, whatever it is, And but I have noticed over the years that when I do work through those things internally, then those triggers from outside sources don't affect me in the same way that they used to. It's like, it used to be that whenever we would get into I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say that we were really like angry at each other, but we get into a tussle of whatever sort, and it was generally because I was being defensive, or he was being defensive about whatever it is. And every time it was something that we were being defensive about, it was because of an internal struggle. And when we were able to work through that, at least when I was able to work through it, I don't know if he's worked through it or not, that's for him. But when I work through those things, then I don't get defensive about it anymore. And I think one of the I suppose I can give an example is that I know that I could be a very difficult person too. I can be I know I can be really difficult. And so one of the times that we had a situation, and I had to recognize this, and I knew I was working on it, and he just had gotten fed up, and he just freaking yelled at me. And instead of me reacting by yelling back at him, I stopped, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm doing it again, and I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't mean to do that. I'm not trying to. And so it diffused that. It was like instantly the argument, the discussion, the anger, all of it, it was just gone. And it was because I recognized, yeah, I know that I'm doing these things, and I'm working on that. And so it was just a really powerful moment for me in my life. And the more that I have worked through that, and the more that I've recognized that, I have these things that I know I get anxiety, or I get, worry, or I get, whatever it is. And when that happens, I start getting shorter tempered, and I tend to bite his head off over stupid stuff. And it's not his fault, So if I just take on that responsibility and recognize, okay, this is the thing I'm going through, that when he lashes back out at me, it makes perfect sense, So instead of being defensive about it, I just recognize, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm doing it again. Sorry. So anyway, that's it for that. I know we're past the top of the hour, so I want to just give everybody an opportunity. Just share your final thoughts on the part that we read, and then I'll end the recording, and then we can have our kind of after discussion.
Interesting start to the book, and looking forward to seeing what else it throws at us for us to dive into. And I'm still learning all the little triggers for me. I still don't have them all totally figured out, but I'm trying.
Is that it? Anybody else? Final thoughts for this section?
I'll hop out right real quick. I'm don't have anything particular to say other than thanks again, Catherine, for reading. Thanks for joining us, Carol. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Good to see you, Kenneth. And I just always appreciate your everybody's perspective on things. And And I look forward to this, what this book's going to bring in regards to how to better deal with it. I know we all go through our own personal discomforts anyways, and so a lot of times we're not looking to, we really don't want to find any new forms of it. So but maybe there's something in the book that allow us to look at it in a different way that will help. So looking forward to it. Thanks once again for hosting, Samantha.
I think since he mentioned Gabor Mate, this book is it's going to get deep. But I mean, I'm just so amazed that the 7 of us on this Zoom, we observe our behavior. We don't blame others for it. We're not like the real world. That's not the way it works out there. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap up the recording here, and then we can have our after show conversation. Okay, so for those of you who are watching, we loved having this conversation. We hope that you'd be interested in joining us for a future conversation. We're going to be continuing our discussion of the book Hunting Discomfort as we go forward over the next few Saturdays. And we get together every week on, this is our Saturday morning mastermind. We get together weekly, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And if you want to participate with us, just jump over to our Facebook group. You can find us by searching for Mindset Mastery Collective. Although if you do a Google search for Saturday Morning Mastermind, you will also find all kinds of stuff, all kinds of information. And if you're watching this recording on YouTube, you'll find a link below to get into our Facebook group, where you can respond going to the event, and we'll add you into our group where you can have conversations with us, and you'll be able to get the join link to get in here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Thanks everybody for all your amazing insights, and I really enjoy the conversation about this book so far. And so with that, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.